Edwy Pennell, who is the editor-in-chief of Mediapart, which is, of course, the website that has really broken this major news story. Edwy Pennell, the editor-in-chief, now joining us. Let's try and get more on this. Thank you so much, sir, for being with us on this program. Clearly, your interview with Mr. Holland has really created waves. What more can you tell us about the context in which he made these remarks, and what exactly is it that he said?
Yes, our investigation is a very small part of the big scandal in India about the Rafale case. We start when we learn by the Indian press, I think it was at the end of August by the Indian Express, we learned that the wife, it's not legally the wife, it's girlfriend of Mr. Holland, Julie Gaillet, an actress and a producer of movies, received for a movie some money from Mr. Anil Ambani, from the group Reliance. And at the same time, there was the contract about the 36 Rafale planes. And we asked about the link. There is possibly a conflict of interest. The wife, the girlfriend of the President of Republic, received money from the chief of Reliance, Mr. Ambani. At the same time, Mr. Ambani was in the deal with Reliance for the Rafale and the Dassault, the French company. Mr. Holland was very clear in his reply about this link. That was a sort of gift. Why Reliance give money to this movie, and why Reliance was in this deal. And his reply is that the presence of Reliance, of Mr. Amdani company in the Rafale story was imposed by the Indian government. I quote exactly what he said to us. We didn't have a word to say about that subject, said Mr. Holland to Mediapart. The Indian government suggested the service provider, and Dassault negotiated with Ambani. We did not have a choice. We picked the interlocutor, which was selected for us. This is why, moreover, this group had no interest in granting me any special privilege. It's about the movie of his girlfriend, Mrs. Gaillet. That's the event. We just asked many times to Mr. Holland, and Mr. Holland was very clear. The Ambani company, Reliance, was in this contract, which is a very big debate in your country, in India, with a question about corruption. I understand that. This company was, for Mr. Holland, in this deal at the demand of the Indian government, not at the demand of the French part.
So let me just understand this. You were essentially asking him about the possibility that his girlfriend was getting the film, whether that had anything to do with it. That's what you were asking him, and he then very clearly replied to say it could have nothing to do with that because the choice was dictated to us by the Indian government and we had no choice in the matter. Am I summing it up correctly?
Yes, and he said he was not aware about this money given by Mr. Ambani in the movie. He was not informed about this link, and that's the reason he said Mr. Ambani don't give any gift for me or for my girlfriend, because it was in this contract not by me. I don't ask. It was not the French part, the French government or the French company Dassault who asked for the link, the deal with Mr. Ambani and Reliance in this big contract about 36 planes, Rafale of the Dassault company.
Right. Now, we've just heard from the Indian government saying that we are still trying to verify the facts of the matter and whether Mr. Hollande did in fact make these statements or not. Presumably, did you get this on camera? Did you record it? You have evidence of him saying all of this, I assume?
We just have this declaration. It was very clear, and we make very long articles, which you can read in a few hours. You can read on Mediapart in English these articles with all the details. And we understand that Mr. Hollande denied the Indian government version. He said the contrary. In fact, he said that the French government, the French Minister of Defense, had no link with the selections of the Indian partners in this deal. It was the demand, the volunteer of the Indian government.
Right. I think the point I was trying to ask you is that the interview which you did with him, did you record it? Is there a recording of it, a television interview?
We are professional. We are professional.
Yeah.
Yes, we have all the details of this report.
Okay, great. I was just trying to settle. Now, just wanted to ask you a question. Did Mr. Hollande at all indicate in his interview to you who had asked the government, who had asked the French government to actually use Mr. Ambani's company Reliance? Did that come across at any stage?
The French government supports the Dassault company. You know, we are, our nation, it's a pity for me, a big armed dealers in the world, and our government asked to foreign government to buy our weapons, our planes, military planes, our bombs, and so on. And Mr. Hollande was in India for this market. Initially, you know, the market was about more than 126 planes. And finally, with the new government, it was a new proposal from India that was 36 planes, and with just this detail that the fabrication, the construction of the plane will be organized in France and not in India. For the French government, it's workers, it's money from the commercial balance and so on, and that's only his role was to support the Dassault company, but Mr. Hollande said the Reliance and the Mr. Ambani company was in this deal not by us, not by. We don't ask and we don't know all the details. That was the Indian part who asked that. In our investigation, it's not an interview, it's an investigation with many details. We publish also a photograph of the meeting of Mr. Hollande with Mr. Ambani at the Élysée Palace in February 2017. His group chairman was at the Élysée Palace at this time. But when the deal was organized, for Mr. Hollande, it's the quote of Mr. Hollande, it was the Indian part who asked for the deal with the Reliance group.
Right. So I think what I'm trying to ask is that there's obviously a discrepancy between what the highest levels of the Indian government are saying and with what Mr. Hollande has said today. So did you get any indication from him as to what level the request actually came at, that Mr. Ambani's company should be used? Was it a prime minister who said it? Was it somebody else senior in the government? Was it at the bureaucratic level? Who asked for it?
Yeah, I understand. You must. We don't ask because you understand that our investigation was, in fact, about the details, the possible conflict of interest that Mr. Hollande was dealing about Rafale and the Dassault company, and at the same time the Indian part, the Indian company, the Reliance Group, this chairman give money for a movie produced by his girlfriend. That was our question. Our question was this link. You know, the big investigation about your story, that's the Indian, and I think there is big, good investigators and independent media in your country to make this job. It was not our investigation at this time for Mediapart.
Right. So that's one last question. So your investigation was whether this was done because of Mr. Hollande's girlfriend and the role that played. Are you satisfied now that that was not the case and that it was therefore the Indian government which asked the French to do this?
I think it's the beginning of a new story. In fact, and that's the reason of this turmoil in your country. Mr. Hollande said, in fact, the contrary of your government. There is a contradiction. Mr. Modi government and Mr. Hollande president, ex-president, they don't say the same thing. It's a very big story for you and for us also. And there is a second part, is how was organized this link of Mr. Ambani and Mrs. Gaillet about this movie. They said that this money was given for the co-producer, not for Mrs. Gaillet, the girlfriend of Mr. Hollande, but for another producer, co-producer of this movie. There was a sort of distance between Mrs. Gaillet and Mr. Ambani. But we will continue to work on this story.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us with all those perspectives.